We've hit a snag. Guess who's got 2 thumbs and didn't stuff the half laps up? This guy. So we're adding some on the fly details. Best day ever. This is why we would work. I have a feeling this is going to be the nicest piece of furniture I've ever made. Welcome back. Today we are making an entryway table or a side table, stuff that you put stuff on, out of this walnut here. I'm excited. The reason I'm excited is this is the first time that I've had walnut delivered. I ordered it online and it's come rough sawn, and for whatever reason it really excites me that I'm going to be able to plane all this down and reveal the really nice timber underneath it. I've never had to do that before because all of my timber that I've used previously comes pre-surfaced like this. So believe it or not, these 2 timbers are the same 2 timbers. So I'm going to turn this into this, and I'm excited for it. Anyway, let's get into prepping this timber. All right, so we've milled all of our timber. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed taking that from the rough sawn timber down to this nice square, plain jointed square timber. So we're definitely gonna be doing more of that in the future. All right, so next step here is we're gonna make this base. So ignore the top here, but this base is gonna be 2 identical frames that are then gonna be spanned with timber here and brass here. So it'll look something like this with colour. So let's get to it. So we've made ourselves a little tapering jig here. Starts at 50 mil here, which will be the base of the leg, and then it'll taper down to 90 mil at the bottom there. So yeah, pretty easy to screw it together. Let's taper, baby. All right, so we're up to our joint. So we cut all our pieces here and we're up to our joinery stage. So we're doing half laps on all of these. Last time I cut half laps, I stuffed them up, but this time we won't, I don't think. So yeah, let's get to it. All right, we've hit a snag. Now with the snag, there's a little bit of good news and a little bit of bad news. The good news is my saw stop works. The bad news is my saw stop works. Now, how did I find this out? So unfortunately the camera wasn't rolling, but I was cutting the corresponding half lap on this stretcher here. And I was just doing a test cut to see if the angle was correct. Now let me show you how I was doing that test cut. So with the new saw stop, I got a new miter gauge. And this is my old miter gauge, which used to go on my old saw. And with my old saw, the miter gauge went in this slot. Now guess what slot it doesn't go in on this saw? I mean, I'm sure you can figure it out, but if I'm pushing material through like this, what do you think is gonna get cut in half? So I was doing the test cut and I just hear a big like clang and I'm like, what was that? And then it occurred to me what had happened. So this is how impressive this technology is. That is the mark. It's barely the size of my finger. If that was my finger, I don't think I'd even feel that a blade hit it. Now, if you're curious as to how this works, I kind of knew, but I didn't actually know. So I just thought that there was some sort of technology in there, which this is true, that senses when your finger hits the saw. But in this brake cartridge, there's a chip, and in the chip, it reads the electrical signal of the blade. So when it's passing through timber, it emits a certain electrical signal, and then when it passes through different materials, such as skin or, as I found out, aluminium, it sends a different one. And once it receives that signal in this chip, that then triggers a spring here to shoot the brake up into the blade, stopping the blade and pulling it down into the saw, which is pretty cool technology if it's about to hit your finger. But if it's not, it's kind of frustrating. In the meantime, we'll break out our old saw and we'll use that to cut down anything that we need to cut down while we wait for the blade and the brake to be sent. All right, so we have our 2 leg frames mocked up here. We've done the top stretcher. They all fit quite nicely. I'm quite proud of what I've done. And then now we're onto the bottom stretcher here. In order to know where the half lap goes on the corresponding piece here, we're gonna sort of dry fit it and then mark it with a knife, and then we can cut to those lines. So that's the plan. Guess who's got 2 thumbs and didn't stuff the half laps up? This guy. God, that's satisfying. All right, next one. If you ever want to kill time, do a glue up, because an hour feels like about 10 minutes. This took about 30 and it felt like 5. All right, my blade's come, let's open it. I wonder what they think when they send these packages out, because you'd assume that someone's obviously set off their saw. Do they think that someone saved their finger in doing it? I wonder. Anyway, let's install it. So for reference, old brake, new brake. One thing I've noticed as well is look how much stress there is on that part there versus the new one. That's clearly where the brunt of the force is taken. All right, that was concerningly simple to install. So nearly a week later and we're finally back in business. That was really easy to change over. Let's get stuck into making the cabinet for the drawer boxes. So we've got a top, a bottom, a divider, a back, 2 sides and 2 drawer faces. And then this is our 20mm stock here. So we've got, I've sorted them into average looking ones, mediocre looking panels, and we have very pretty boys. So these ones will be sort of the show pieces, so the side, the back, the drawer faces. This will be the top and bottom panels because you're not really going to see those, you're only going to see the edges of them. So I don't mind if they're not as pretty as these ones. So we're going to glue the panels together now using biscuits and glue. All right, so we're adding some on-the-fly details. We've got some oak strips here. So we'll glue these oak strips to the top and the bottom of the side pieces, and it'll just add a nice little subtle detail of contrast for the actual cabinet itself. So let's get into it. All right, it's domino time. So we've got sort of our dividers here laid out. We've got our base, our top, and then our back panel, which will fit in the end. We're going to sort of spend a bit of time laying out the dominoes now because I've actually not really done dominoes, especially ones in the middle of a panel before. So I'm just gonna have to take my time, Be patient. Usually when I say this, I end up stuffing it up. So we'll touch base in a bit and see how we go. All right, this makes logical sense to me. So if I've already put dominoes in this one, if I then line that up with the corresponding spot that I want it to go, then I can use this layout line here to transfer it onto that spot there. That's at least my thinking. Let's do it and then find out if we stuff it up. All right, moment of truth. All right, so turns out I'm a genius. You can't even see the layout lines that I put there because it fits perfectly. Now the hard part's actually getting this. Oh, there we go. Beautiful. All right, one down. All right, all the dominoes are cut. It's dry fit time just to make sure everything's fitting nicely. So yeah, I'm looking forward to being very satisfied after this. But I could also be very unsatisfied. So I guess we'll see. All right, we're on track. Now for the top. Oh my God, best day ever. This is why we would work, for moments like this. Oh, I'm pumped with that, that's so good. Here, come have a look. Everything's just so nice and flush. God. Beautiful, well done, Ethan. All right, so now that we know that it fits, next up here, we're just gonna final sand the inside of this. We'll give it a little water pop and then sand again so that when we wipe the glue out, after we glue it up, it doesn't sort of raise the grain and mean that we have to sand again. So we'll pre-sand everything that's inside here and then go from there. So I'll let that sit for a bit and then we'll come back and sand off the raised grain. Okay, so she's all dry now and the grain is now raised, so it's very rough. So we'll come through with 240 grit sandpaper, knock that off, and then get into gluing this thing together. All right, glue up complete. That's probably the calmest I've been in a glue up situation in a long time. I have a feeling this is going to be the nicest piece of furniture I've ever made, and by a fair way. Everything's going really well so far. I'm very excited for the rest of this. So while we wait for this to dry, we'll get into rounding over and sanding and joining the leg base together. Yeah, let's do it. All right, we're halfway through and the bearing on this roundover bit's come loose, so we're gonna have to go get a new one. All right, we're back from our adventure. Old bit, new bit. All right, so this is our base mocked up. we'll drill the holes for the brass rods to run through here, and then we'll also domino the two stretches, the timber stretches at the top here. I've left these parts of the actual leg bases and the stretches square for now. Once I've dominoed them, I can dry fit everything together, and then I can do my final rounding over of everything, and then I can take it all apart and do a final sand while it's all in pieces, so it's easy to access, and then we can glue it all together and do our final sand after that. So that's the plan. All right, I've stuffed my layout lines up. So I'm just gonna have to recut these dominoes and figure out if I can cover my existing domino holes with the glue up. So yeah, we'll see how we go. All right, that is the damage there. We'll have to cut a little inlay in there. We might do it out of the oak so that we have a bit of consistency throughout the piece. But what we'll do in the meantime is we'll round over the rest of this while it's all dry fit, give it a sand and get it ready for the actual glue up. So yeah, that's the plan. So we've got our cabinet out of the clamps here. We're going to get into sanding this down. One technique I'm going to try and use here is I'm going to use this card scraper here to scrape the corners where there's a little bit of glue squeeze out. Although we did try our best to avoid that, it has turned out to be unavoidable. So we're going to use this to get into the corners because the sander just doesn't really do the trick often. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing, this combined with the actual sander itself. So we've made ourselves some boring square wooden drawer boxes. Now, a couple of things I don't like. I don't like how chunky this timber looks, and I don't like the base of it. So what are we going to do? We're going to route a profile on the edge, the top edge of this drawer, like so. So that'll take a bit of the weight out of the actual drawer box itself. It looks lighter in person, I swear. And then for the base, we're going to use some green leather. So we're going to skin the bottom of the drawer boxes with this green leather here, which will just elevate the drawer box, I think. Otherwise, it's quite a boring part of the piece itself, but having the green leather in there with the profile, we're also going to fill in these holes here with oak plugs. So we're just adding small, subtle details to elevate the drawer boxes themselves. So I'm excited for it. All right, we're doing this stuff outside because this stinks. So I don't want that in the shed. So we're doing it out here. I reckon that looks so cool. It's just something really subtle, but it's really nice. I also realised that I'm going to have to pre-finish the actual box itself before I install this because I don't want to get finish on the actual leather. So we'll take this apart, sand it, and then finish it. So we're up to drawer fronts now. We've got a slight 3mm round over on the whole drawer front here, which matches the box.
just to soften everything and sort of tie into the base as well. Now we went through a couple of iterations of handles. So this is our first one, but when it came in the mail, I didn't like the weight of it. It feels a bit cheap, and I also think it just sticks out a bit too much. So then we went to the local antique store and we picked this out, and I thought at the time, yeah, that'd be great. But then as I looked at it on the drawer front itself, it just seems a bit bulky and takes up a bit too much space. So then lastly, we opted for this. A little bit sleeker, kind of matches the rounded sort of look of the entire piece, and has a cool Egyptian sort of style. And then lastly, I've changed the lighting in my studio, and I kind of want some feedback on it, because if you go back through my videos, I've been mucking around with lighting for the last 4 videos or so, to try and get something that is visually pleasing. Ultimately, the goal is I want you guys to enjoy being in this space as much as I do. So if you like this warmer light, please let me know, because yeah, I've been tinkering a bit. And if there's any lighting experts out there who have any opinions or have anything they want to share, please feel free to share it, because I am all ears. Anyway, let's get back into doing some stuff. All right, now it's time to put together the top. We finished the base and the cabinet itself. So we're gonna make sort of like the shell of it, the picture frame, the base, and then we'll add the tiles after that. So let's get into doing that. Top is prepped. Now for the bit that I'm most excited about, the tiles. So these tiles were made by my mum and my sister. My sister glazed them, my mum made the shape. My mum's a bit of a ceramicist, so I said, can you make me some tiles? And she said, yeah, sure. So here we are. So I've opted for a forest green. They all have a bit of an organic edge, which I really like. And then I've also asked for a bit of a detail throughout, where we've just scalloped out sort of sections of the tile to give it sort of a pitted look. So I really like how they look. I really like how they've come out, and I'm excited to use them in this tabletop. So the way I'm going to do this is I've bought myself some tile adhesive just from Bunnings. And then I've got this dark grey coloured grout. So that's what I'm going to be using to grout the grout lines in the tiles. So on my piece here, you would have seen me put a grey cement board down. That's to adhere the tiles to. I didn't want to just use the plywood, because I didn't want moisture getting into it and potentially cupping and bowing it. So I layered it with the cement sheet. So I'm kind of cobbled all this together. I've had a look at like the proper way to do it, but also not overly in depth. So we're just gonna have a crack and see how it goes. You would have seen me just install the cabinet to the leg, or the legs. Well, I guess it's one leg, one big body, anyway. With these brass standoffs that have holes drilled in them. So they act as a standoff, and then the hole is so that the screw can go through the middle of it and provide rigidity, so I don't have to glue it. Because I don't really trust glue if you're moving this thing around the house. If you're wondering why I said I don't want to use glue, but I am using glue, it's because these back ones are too close to the back wall, so I can't actually get a screw in there. So that's why I'm using glue on the back too. The rest of them I'm screwing. So it's our last little piece. Pretty excited to get this all done and dusted. So yeah, let's do it.
It's done. It looks nice.
Fucking nice. I'm obsessed with it. It's so good.
All right, she's done. So there's about 50 hours of work in this one, but I am stoked with how this has turned out. This is by far the nicest thing I've ever made. I think the combinations of all the colours is really nice. The leather drawers, the tiled top, the texture in the tiles, the walnut itself, I just think it all looks really good. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.